Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for yet another conversation with. This is going to be a pivot for us. We've been talking with franchise CEOs for the majority of our conversations, and now we're going to shift it into a motivational speaker. What I love most about the stories that we're going to hear is I think it puts things into perspective. I know we're all looking at our businesses, and even some of us that are looking at potentially buying a franchise or starting a business, we're looking at a lot of change and impact that's hitting us. And a lot of our conversations have revolved around mindset, and we're gonna dive into that in a big way. Anthony, thank you so much for spending some time. To kick this off, I would love for you to tell us the bullet points of your story that you think are important for people to know, because I think that's going to frame the discussion on how you even get to this point and your mindset that's gone through all the challenges that you faced in your life and your career.
Yeah. I'll try to give the bullet points. I'm sure as we go through stuff, things will they'll span out from there also. But the primary base of what I do in the world is I teach people how to upgrade how they operate so they can elevate their life and business. It's from the internal aspect, right? My story starts way back a long time ago. I'm not going to go to all of it, but I was given away into foster care at 3 years old. I grew up in an all-white family. Had a lot of weird things take place in regards of like just getting adopted, young child at like 20 years old, married a high school sweetheart. Mom got sick, played college sports, played in the NFL, got done with the NFL, lost my entire identity as to who I was. And I really, that kind of like was a core of like my foundational pieces. Married my high school sweetheart, had 2 more kids. And then life fell apart. I broke my life, man. That's one of the crazy things. When I came out of the NFL, I wanted to go into business, and I did. I opened up my own gym, novel idea for an athlete, but my degree was in kinesiology. So started that. So I got kind of bathed in the crazy really early. It was really a microcosm of the world that I got to experience in that realm of, dealing with like a bunch of staff and how do I navigate marketing and advertising, how do I develop systems, because I wasn't franchised, like how to develop systems, how do I do all this stuff. And I focused too much on the business side of my life, and my life fell apart. Ended up, my wife had an affair, like broke my heart. I lost my football identity already. The business was going horrible. Within 9 months, I got a letter from the landlord, an eviction letter. I wasn't a present father. I was out of shape. So like I hit that really dark bottom and had a choice, man. Either you sink or swim. And I chose to try to swim and started climbing out of the hole. And got to a point where I realized that in my life, I'd crossed a lot of finish lines, done a lot of weird stuff, but I found a way to be successful. I got to a point where I had like this $250,000 consultant contract with a power company that was like, $30,000 and honestly just overhead stuff. So like 220 grand in profit, more money than I'd seen since like the NFL. Business was all over the place. And I started little by little, like the last 10 years, ratcheting things in tighter and tighter. And so I got to a point where I realized one of the odd strengths of my life, which is what I do now, is navigating all these weird identity shifts as life kind of proactively makes us choose it or just makes us react to it. Like right now, we're all in this time of a reactive shift. And when you look at the shifts of life, if you don't understand how to navigate them, then you sink. It's like, can you ride the wave like a surfer, or do you get taken down and you end up drowning, right? And so the idea of what I'd love to talk about today, which we'll unpack, is it's the idea of mindset, which is a subset of your identity. And when you understand how the identity operates, which I'll talk about and kind of unpack the concepts of it, you can actually get a great deal of control over things. Also understand how to navigate things as craziness ensues to where you can overcome almost everything. Because at the end of this, some people will sink, some because it's the nature, but some are going to like float to the top and kill it. Like I got clients right now that are almost at 6 figures in 3 weeks building new stuff that didn't exist, because I've taught them how to navigate the shifts. And when you do it, oh man, it's amazing. So at this point, man, now I get to travel the world and speak. I'm on stage in front of thousands at a time, 4,000 at a time. I work with companies like Amazon and their web services. I have executive clients that are actually in Amazon and different organizations around the country. I write books. I coach clients like this probably about 80% of my day. And I have an amazing marriage that I was able to fix. Like one of the big things is when I broke it all, I fixed it all. So I got back with my ex-wife after 3 years and crazy growth of myself. We're now happily married. My kids have a present father. My business is run very smooth. And I'm really big on developing systems that allow me to do what I love, and the business still grows. So I'm able to do this stuff right here. So I got asked to do this like last week, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it, because I know how my business runs and operates, and I'm in a great mood. So that's kind of like my short snippet story of what I do. But a lot of it boils down to, how do I teach people to navigate their identity, how to upgrade how you operate to be able to do things better.
Anthony, that's like, I was reading your bio. I mean, and it's amazing everything you've done, Buccaneers, NFL, and the honesty and candor. Your experiences as a foster child. Um, so, for everyone listening now, you talk about seeing what's holding you back.
Yeah.
So I guess your point is you need to shift your mindset, right? But many people aren't even seeing what's holding them back, and so what do you recommend? How do you see what's going on?
Yeah, so there's a process. So my thing, one, I'm never a guy that likes to talk and then just like, here's a concept and doesn't make sense. The big thing I do is I'm a process thinker. Football gave that to me. I think in pictures. So imagine first, if I want to shift something, I have to see what to shift. And here's the problem. A lot of people don't understand what to look at. So we have what's called an ideal identity. We also have a current identity, and it's kind of like a Venn diagram. Literally, I can actually show it. Can I share my screen and show these things? I'm curious if I can do it. I've never used this platform before. But if that's doable, you guys have to come back on and tell me. Could that be possible?
If you send me what to put on the screen, I know I can do it. I have no idea.
Let's try this. We're gonna try some magic in the middle. We're gonna open some preferences. I might be able to do it. Watch this, because magic is amazing. What is this? Cool crunch word later. Let's see if this works, because that would be super cool if I can. If not, then I'll have to do it later. So let's see if I can. Boom, done it. Can you see that now? I'm in the show. Oh,
there it is.
There.
Awesome. So what you have is what's called your ideal identity. It's like your identity anchors. Boom, but magic. I like technology. So we have the beliefs. The beliefs are the things that are rooted in us, like what we actually believe about ourselves. Stories, which are the stories we tell ourselves every day. Think of these as your thoughts. Like, I'm always thinking this. Where your beliefs and stories overlap, where your mindset sits. So if I believe I'm supposed to do something, but I'm always questioning, like, am I good enough though? And can I do this? Well, your mindset gets weak. It's problematic. Then you have between actions and stories, right? So the actions are what I'm actually doing, and the stories I tell myself about whether I should be doing it. And if I'm like, yeah, I should go get my workout, but then I always miss the workout, I got bad habits. And bad habits get nothing done. And then the big powerful one you have is what's called your beliefs and actions overlap. If I believe I'm supposed to do something and I do an action in opposition or lack it, then I lose this chip on my shoulder. The ego of myself like diminishes. I don't feel as amazing. And so what happens is some people will focus just on mindset, which is great. But then I know a lot of people that read that book, The Secret, who have powerful mindsets, but then they don't take the actions. They never make the transition, never make the achievement. And like, I was in the NFL. I have a great mindset. But there's areas where I was failing in areas of not having great habits. I didn't have a good chip on my shoulder. I didn't think I was a great guy, right? So I had to fix things. And when you get them all spinning, now you can move. So the question you had was like, how do I make that shift? How do I ease into it? That's like the foundation of the company, the areas I work on, right? That I work on all those things moving together. The problem is some people focus on one, neglect the other, and things fall apart. Like, if you go into a room and have all these lights, imagine a bunch of lights in a room and they all are off. And if I turn them all on, they're all on. I can see an amazing message to make things happen. If they're all on a timer, right, I go and work on light 1 and light 2 and light 3 of 6. Well, by the time I get to 5, if one's turning off and 2's turning off, I'm running around the room. But if I go back to one area and can flip one switch to turn them all on, they all come on, which is identity. If I flip that, they all move. But what you said was there's those 3 stages. So see, shift, sustain is my process. So when I work with people, we come in and say, hey, I want to work on like this area. And that's the shift work. We got to do the shift work itself to get something done. But most people, they're just doing things. Like, they're literally just doing, I read this and I should do this. And I do. It's like climbing a ladder, leaned against a building, get to the very top, you're dead tired and realize, oh, wait, the ladder's leaned against the wrong building. We didn't see what to work on. So I go back and I say, let's unpack some things. I have really weird processes we do, but we get a chance to see like really where you're at, that you may not want to own that you're at. Like, I had to do it in my marriage. Like, where was I the problem in my marriage? How did it fall apart? Only way I could fix it. Where am I the problem in my parenting situations? The business itself, what was I not doing in the business? And so I got to go back and see like, oh yeah, that's what I really got to work on. And now when I went into the work, I knew it was the right work. And I had more hope, more aspiration, more follow through, because I was like, if I had some control here. If I can fix this, then okay, now I can make this work. So I would put time and energy in, and it works. And then all of a sudden, like I have some success. And the last part, sustain. The worst thing in life is to have some progress and like make a pie and then watch it fall. Like I made this beautiful pie and it fell down. The idea is like I want to be able to have people keep what they have and then pursue even more from that point on.
So speaking of today's time, and this is a stressful time for a lot of business owners, restaurant industry, for instance, we have some clients that, you know, their sales went down to zero. They weren't prepared for having third-party delivery in this moment. So when you micro this down into a moment, like someone that's been working so hard to build things, how do you address that? And then imagine, because you spent your life building to get to the NFL, and then you hit a top that you just couldn't break through, and you had to change your mindset that I'm going to go do that in something else. Last thing, because I think it's important, before we even jump on this conversation, you're like, everything's great. So you have your headspace is already in such a. I would love for you to unpack that a little bit on someone that's really struggling in life right now, even though they spent all this energy to build it up to this, like how to change mindset to say, let's go do it again.
Yeah. It's tough because you're talking about an identity crisis, right? Whenever we develop something, essentially what we creates us internally. So like if I'm creating something, I'm like this, you know, maybe I started painting pictures and I was creating this painting in the beginning, like I wasn't a painter. But after I've done this a long time, like, oh, I'm a painter now, like I own that. And so when I've invested, I want the return of the sense of confidence in that. So people who are building these businesses and created something, I've created that. That's who I am now. So if you take this and strip it away, now it's like, well, who am I? And it's kind of like looking at a tree. I call this a tree of life. If you haven't noticed, I got a bunch of weird pictures and stories and metaphors, but this is how I teach. I'm a teacher at the core. A lot of people have made this amazing fruit, like a beautiful apple. It's this big business. It's amazing. It's doing well. And then the fruit falls off the tree and it withers and dies. It's an identity crisis. Like, who am I? It's dead. This sucks. And I stew and I sit, and it really is difficult. But what I look at is the realization for people to grasp, which is why I'm comfortable, is like, hey, at the end of the day, you made this apple, but you're not the apple. You're the tree. Like, you're the thing that created that. And so, yes, in the middle of this turmoil, this craziness, what's going on, you're looking at the sense of like, yes, part of your identity that you created disappeared, but you are still the person who created this thing. The mindset, the thoughts, the operations, the flows, you're focusing in the wrong area right now. You're not seeing opportunity because you're not choosing to see it. And so if you can go back and like give nutrients to the tree and work on the roots and figure out what it is, you can create a brand new piece of fruit or more fruit on the same branch. And so what I would recommend to people in this moment is to step back for a second and accept, like, okay, cool, I got to pivot. When I left the NFL, I didn't think anything was possible. Like I hit the peak, like that's it, never going to be great at anything else. Like what else am I going to do? And it was difficult. And what I essentially tie it to is one of the main core like concepts of my entire business. And this one, that if you guys have computers, it'll make complete sense. And you'll be able to see in yourself like, oh, okay, I get this. And here's how it works. You have right now we're on computers or on phones, whatever. The phones work just the same way. And at a certain point in time, a little thing pops up and says, hey, do you want to update your computer? And we say, no, snooze. I don't want this computer. I got things to do right now. I gotta operate. I gotta flow. So we push it away and we go back to work, right? And after a while, the pop-up comes again. It's like, no, I don't need to worry about that. And so I just keep going back to work. And then a while, like now all the programs start shutting down. Like my Microsoft Word keeps crashing and my Zoom doesn't work and my browser keeps messing up and like all of a sudden, like it just wasn't working. And I start getting, like this spinning wheel of death. Everything's like bogged down. And then I go and I can operate in safe mode, but then safe mode cuts off some programs, right? And so it's like I can only work on the core ones. And after a while, I'm like, I got to update this computer. Snooze comes up, I hit it, and I got to do the painful work of sitting back and just waiting for the computer to update. And it says 30 minutes and then 29. And I just stared at like, oh, I just want to get back to work, right? There's pain in waiting. And if you think about how we as humans operate, a lot of the time, that's exactly how life works. Like we are the hardware, we're the computer. We could wake up brand new every single day, but some of us are operating off like Windows 95. We haven't updated the software. So the programs are like your health, your relationships, it's your career, it's the finances you have, it's are you taking trips, do you feel good? Like those are the programs that start bogging down. And next thing you know, try to open in safe mode. I cut everybody off and I just silo in and I'll just try to operate by myself. But we come to find like that doesn't work. That's why you watch things like this. The community is huge. You need people around. What you have to do is step back and say, all right, I've been getting the updates of saying you got to work on this. You got to learn this. You have to get better at this. Stop being so mad. Be more communicative. The updates have been coming in. We've just been pushing them away and snoozing them for far too long. Once you sit back and take that painful time of like waiting and, oh my, okay, I got to learn. I got to spend time just like you would with the computer, and it updates. You learn new skills, learn new techniques, pivot and adjust with the shifting times. Now the computer starts running smooth. You start running smooth. Relationships are good. You get in great shape. You feel good, like you're giving good stuff to the world. And then when the updates come in, you navigate them now. Like it comes in, okay, boom, I'm going to navigate that because I know how to be okay with the time being spent to get better. And so people right now, essentially, if you can take that simple metaphor and simplify it down, it's like, hey, you got to learn to figure out where the updates are coming from and then do the work and take the time to update them.
Anthony, right now in this current crisis, when you speak to your coaching clients, and what are some of the fears? What are like the biggest fears you're discussing with them, and how you work through it with them, and what are some of those conversations?
Yeah, so there's a duality. So my focus is always in life and business. So part of it is the life aspect. This is we've talked about. It's the mindset. It's the beliefs they have. It's what you refocus on, because the action and suffering. The suffering we're all feeling right now, which is common. A lot of people are sitting there and they're just thinking about it. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And very few people are doing anything. So the first part for me, it's taking people to a perspective of we need to take unconfident action into a different area we don't know. Like it's just going to be the necessary need right now. How do I get up when I don't feel like getting up and doing something, but go boldly and do it? The other part is the business side. And really what it is for me is I'm working my clients through processes of learning and fixating on different aspects of where they can find opportunity. Now, every business is different. Like I have friends that own businesses that are restaurants right now as well, and they're trying to find ways to get things online. And what is actually happening, what I've noticed is everybody's forced to be on the same battlefield. There was the battlefield of the brick and mortar business, the seminars, the events, the masterminds, right? But now everybody's in the same battlefield of the online world, on social media, on ads, on TV and streaming services. So how do you cut through the noise? And what I'm working with my clients right now to do is now teach them to get into a space that they didn't really think they needed at first. They figured, like, if I got a cool sign outside and I keep the place nice and my staff is good, I'll make revenue. Well, now you got to play in my world. And my world's a little bit different of like, I got to create great content. I got to create great conversations. I got to be in my client's conversation. I need to be something that, like, I need to be more of a prevalent source of some kind of hope or some way to bring something good that fills a need for them. So you're being forced to find new areas to be of service to a demographic. And then how do I communicate that? It's called copy. Like, how do I write copy? If you think about copy is the tagline for a movie. It's, if you go to stream on Netflix, it's the little section, that's the about section that lets you, like, oh, I want to read that. It's the headlines in the Inquirer when you're standing in line at the the newsstand or at the grocery store. Like, that's all words written to engage an individual. And so if you look at what we're doing now, people are having to get online, and online, those who are doing well, they know who they're talking to, how to be in the story and in the conversation. They know how to say the right words to communicate. So that's what I've been focused with my clients on, is how do we get into the conversation in the heart that they're having right now and do it with the right words that cut through the rest of the noise they're already hearing.
As part of your success to get to this mindset come in finding victories in the little things, and that, if you look at all the moments throughout your life that you're at least, it may have not been perfect. Even going back to you being a kid, it might not have been perfect what the situation was, but you found a way to find silver lining in the small victories.
Always. Yeah, you have to. If you think about like everything we've already done, we're really good at noticing what we didn't do right. And if you think about whenever we think about taking a bold action, we as humans have like this process we run through all the time. This is like the actual core mindset aspect. At the top of, like, imagine a circle, a loop. Oh, I got another picture. I'm gonna pull the picture up because this one's a good picture. Pull the picture up. He says, So I'm going to share this because this is actually the process that is how our brain runs all the time. Let's go to this one. Boom. Let me know if you guys got it. You see it?
There we go.
There it is. So this is
It's
how
on
we
there.
program, and it's actually perfect for the mindset aspect. So we have a top identity, right? The anchors that make us us. If I asked who you are, you'd say, oh, this is who I am. Well, next that you have what's called the personal beliefs that come from that identity. Whatever I think I am, it leads to certain beliefs I have. Those beliefs lead me to stories and thoughts I'm running all the time, consciously and subconsciously. From those thoughts, I get a feeling. There's a certain feeling of what's possible and impossible, whatever it might be. And so I'll take an action from feeling. If I feel bold and powerful, I take a bold action. If I'm scared or timid, I take a weak action. The problem is good or bad action, that action creates an outcome. And the outcome, no matter what it is, gives us an environment internally of confidence or lack thereof, and externally of things I've got: more money, less time. And whatever my environment is, it re-solidifies the anchor of that identity. So if I'm not doing well because I don't believe in anything or have bad stories, like it runs like this on a loop. This isn't something that we start. This is literally always going for us. And so what I do is I step in and say, look, if we want to be able to go in and have this sense of self and be able to create something great, we've really got to get to a point where we realize, like, where in that space can I enter in to change the mindset flow? And the only area you really can pop in and make a really quick adjustment is the area between feelings and actions. So I usually tell people, like, as a kid, did you ever like jump off a cliff into water? Did you guys ever do that as a kid? We all did it, right? In the beginning, you're like, oh, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna go do that. But at some point, you worked up this energy of like, all right, shut your brain off and just run and jump. You're like, oh, this is amazing. And the next thing you know, the kid out there running all day, jumping and flipping and all of the craziness. And for a lot of us, that's what we're looking at when we get to this new space. It's entering into a space where I have to pull from the past, but pull the positives to give myself enough of a little, like I call it your secret self, your alter ego, to enter that space, take that bold action. So really what it is when I go back in the past, we are really good at finding what we did wrong. Dove did a study years ago. They had women come in, and they had them, two women come in, and one woman would describe herself to a sketch artist. Then the woman's friend would describe this woman to the same sketch artist. You get two different pictures. They had all these women do it. They'd come back. And whenever the woman was describing herself, horrendous, ugly, like nasty, her moles and her pimples, right? When the friend described the same woman, it was a beautiful picture every time. And what I went to show is, like, we're really good at seeing what we did wrong. Like, we're just built for that, which is odd. And when you operate from that energy, that emotion, you don't take a bold action. You just think about what you did poorly. So what I have people do, it's not even a gratitude usually exercise. It's like, it's a remembrance. Look at where you are, tell them where you were at, and then now look at where you are. Like, what have you created? What have you done? What were the wins you had? Scratch the losses. That's part of the process. But where are you at in comparison? And the moment they get a chance, like, oh yeah, I did do that. I did get that award. I did achieve that. I did build this. I got 200 stores. Like, okay, I got this. Like, I can take this crazy bold action. I'm bringing that person to this problem. You get this different sense of confidence, and you pull out that person that's been hiding in the background to take that action. And the action has a new outcome, and the outcome has a new environment, and then so on and so forth. So the process rolls smooth.
And sort of off topic, everything you've done, what setback or failure, what was the biggest one that hit you in your life, Anthony?
Yeah, I had a lot, man.
What's the one that pops out as you're thinking about it now? What's the one that gets to the core of you?
Oh man, it was the situation with my ex-wife, who's now my current wife. That was because at the end of the day, man, I've had business success, but none of it was any good when I was alone. Like, I got large contracts, I've made great money, but when I was solo, it was never fun to celebrate. So if I was to go back to one that hit the most, it was like realizing, excuse me, that just came out of nowhere. I'm drinking seltzer water, so it's probably why I got burps coming out. That's really, really not so professional. My apologies. So here's what took place. I got to a point where, man, I was at work 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. grinding at the gym, trying to build this thing up. I had this wife at home we had a kid that was 4. We had twins that were brand new. I was out of shape. I'd lost football, and I kind of already briefly mentioned this. And I got to this point where we take a trip to Hawaii, and I like look over my wife's shoulder and find out that, she's talking to another guy, and like broke me, man. Like, I went home, and you get in this typical fogs of Like, what do I do with this problem? Like, anybody's had a crazy problem, you sit in a fog for a while. Like, I had all these things hit at one moment. And I just fogged up, and I kind of went through the motions for life for probably a good like 3-4 months. I would just go to work and try to give happy to my clients when I wasn't happy inside. Like, it just drained my soul. I'd cover it up and I'd fake it. And then I got to this point where I went to watch a UFC fight with my buddies. I was at the couch just sitting. I was told that I was sat there for like 3 hours and just didn't move. And then it ended, and I kind of got up and walked out. My buddies, one of them walks out and he says, "Hey, man, I don't know if you know, but like, we noticed there's something off. It's like, this isn't you, and maybe you haven't accepted it." But he says, "This is your reality." And it slammed on my chest, man. It was like that, like just that crazy weight. And to be honest, the brain can't always distinguish between physical and emotional pain. So it felt like a lot of pain. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stop crying. Like, I was done. And I sent a text to my friends and family. I said, "Please tell my kids who their father was." Like, I drove off looking for rat poison, to be totally honest, man. I get about an hour out of town. It's late, so no stores are open. Thankfully, I kind of parked the car, and like this wave just kind of like starts to move itself through. And eventually, as I'm sitting there, like the police come and they track my phone on GPS, and I kind of played it off like, "No, I'm fine. I just had to get away from the house. My wife and I are having issues." And I went back home, man. It was just like this weird thought of like, what in the hell am I supposed to do? Like, everything that like had this big facade and chip that I was falsifying to the public of like, I'm the gym owner, former NFL guy, wife and kids. Like, none of that was real. Like, it wasn't exactly the way people thought it was, better than it actually was. And I for the first time, like, I let people into the world of like, my stuff's falling apart. I am not this perfect human. And it was like the first time that I had this chance to really like revisit and say, okay, where am I going? It was my crashing of the computer. Like, my identity had got me into a good point. NFL, gym owner, right? But really, I had got to the spinning wheel of death. I'd been stopping all the alerts saying, "Hey, you got to learn how to run your business better. You need to have more systems in place because it's just you running this place." And my wife was like, "You need to be home more often." And my kids wanted more dad. And I was supposed to work out, but I was like, "Well, I'm moving around lifting weights for other people. I'm getting some workouts in." And I hadn't got comfortable with the acceptance of like, the NFL is done. You're not going back to the NFL. Like, all these things weren't realities, but when they slammed on me at once and I stopped, like, all right, like, that was my bottom. That was the moment I had to wake up and start figuring this thing out.
So as you tell that story, you tell it in a way that you've almost forgiven yourself for what you went through during that time. That you've been able to move on, and it almost sounds like you're out of body when you're talking about this former self that had to battle these challenges. And the reality is, a lot of people are going to be battling through that on the other side of when we get business back in order. I was reading data points on what percentage of suicides happen when unemployment skyrockets. And there's an expectation that a lot of people are going to hit really, really dark moments. But, I'm going to go back to the word silver lining. I hear you tell a story about your former self. Ultimately, like, that's where people are going to have to get to. They're going to have to be able to reflect back and say that bad moment, because there's going to be a lot of them coming up here in the next few months. That bad moment's in the past. Here's how I move on to the future.
Yeah, unfortunately, people are being forced with it now. I don't even think it'll be a future thing. I think it's happening now. Some people are having to sit at home with their wife and kids more often than they ever were used to and navigate those conversations they tried to avoid. There's no more distractions. Like, for me, the distraction for a while was work. I'd have to focus on everything else going on. But when those are taken away, you're forced to sit there and see who you are. That's a tough place to be for some people. Some people are drinking a lot more right now. Suicide rate, like the hotline I've heard, is picking up. So this is real right now. It's not even going to be a future thing. And I do talk about it in a sense of as a different guy, because it was a different guy. Different thoughts, different beliefs, different actions, habits. Like, it was genuinely a different person operating back then. But the thing is, most people look at being faced with that as, I'm unlovable, I'm horrible, I can't fix this, end of the road, and I'm done. When the reality is, it's not. Like, it's the moment that you're being gifted to be able to see, we talked about, what you need to work on. And just like, it's the same thing, you're the tree. Just like when we talk about what you've already created, like, if you've already created something amazing, a good business, success, you're the tree. Like, you are the person who can recreate the fruit. And now you just see what nutrients your tree needs. Now you're seeing, like, okay, I got to work on my relationship. I got to work on how I communicate with my staff. I got to be a better leader. I got to lead myself better so I can lead the team better. I got to get new skill sets to figure out how to navigate these new waters. Because if you do that, you'll succeed. Like, that's human. That's humanity. We all are faced with problems. That's how businesses get created in the first place. Here's a problem. Let me solve it. And too many people are like, well, I can't do this anymore. Like, no. Like, you can solve the problem. You've done it before. Get back on the horse and ride again.
Anthony, I mean, that's phenomenal advice. We've been having leadership conversations in the franchise world, and the consistent pattern we're seeing, and something I believe to my core, and Nick and I were talking about this, a couple of things. I think as a country, whether politically, it's going to shift, internationally, relationships are going to shift. I think everything changes, but in our little world, looking at the franchise world, brands as they're growing, businesses, I'm picking up a pattern, or at least we're seeing, is everything's going to change on the other side of this recovery. Businesses that were successful may not be, and startup and emerging businesses may have tremendous opportunity on the other side. And I think it's a function of all the things you're saying too, which is you now have to tell a story and digital and different platforms. But it seems like there's so much opportunity. Aside from the suffering, it seems like there's a big transformation ahead of us in almost everything.
Yeah, I mean, a ton of transformation. I always look at us as well, like there's always these three areas that allow us to be successful. It's tools, techniques, and a technician. So tools and techniques are like, the software tool or the hardware tool, right? And then the manual of how to use that, so to speak. So if I have like let's just say I have a Facebook like this, we're using this platform, StreamYard. This is a tool, but I'm sure it's like a tutorial or some way to navigate how to use it. But what really makes the difference with it is who the technician is showing up to utilize it. In the world of franchise, like, you're given tools and techniques. That's what you're paying for, is the systems and the tools and what to get, like how to buy this and it looks like this and here's how you train your staff. That's what we're buying. What will allow it to be successful, however, which separates so many people with the same tools and techniques, is the technician. And so when these transformations change, a lot of people are worried about transformation.
Anthony gets stuck.
Yeah.
We'll wait for him. Hopefully they'll restart in a second. Oh, there we go.
I made it back. Went for a pee break. No, I'm kidding. Where did I cut off?
We're talking about transformation.
Oh, yeah. So the transformation part of it, a lot of people are worried about transformation. Like, it scares them. Like, what do I do in this new changing stuff? And the thing is, it's kind of like that. It's like a room we look at. It's a dark room, and I don't know what's in there. And we always think of the monster in the room because it's dark and I don't see anything. But inside that same room is all the treasure. It's everything that's going to be great as well. It's the unknown that scares us a lot. And so, like, I like to lean into the unknown because I'm like, well, hey, I know half the people aren't going to come in this room. So if I go in, there's more treasure for me. Yes, I'll be a monster or two. But damn it, I've been slaying monsters all my life. Like, I got this. So let's go in, slay that monster when it comes, not if, but when, and then I get all the treasure. So it's going to be a matter of who decides to switch their mindset to a perspective of pursuance as opposed to like, oppression and feeling like small and trying to tuck back and protect. Like that whole thought of like scared money doesn't make money. Like, scared money right now is saying, I'm not going to invest in anything. I'm going to keep tight. I'm going to stay here. And you start disconnecting yourself from the rest of the world just to stay back and protect what you got. Or you be the person that says, look, I'm going to invest a little bit to stay like in the know, keep my ear to the street. Because when this thing lifts, not if, but when, because the world will go back to a new normalcy. When that happens, there's going to be a group of people at the starting line, and it's going to say, go. Some people are going to take off running full speed because they stayed invested, know what's going on. Whereas some people who are disconnected are going to be like, where's everybody going? What's going on? So I'm real big on like, don't be the scared money, man. Invest and stay in places, even if it's time, stay connected. So when things are going, like, you get to be the first to know and take advantage of it when it changes.
I have a feeling I know what the answer to this is, but so this news started coming out at the beginning of the year, and February people aren't really doing anything, and then March hits, and then all of a sudden March 10th, and now all of a sudden it's real. Were you scared about this at all? Does this even phase you?
No, man, it doesn't. You know why? It's because I immediately know myself. Like one is I never teach something that I haven't crossed the finish line on. Right? Some people get in the world of teaching and training and coaching, but they've never like they're not the one to lead that message, and they're not the one that they haven't crossed. They're like still running the race. The worst time to talk about how to run the race, the best is in the middle of the race, because you may have taken a left turn, but until you cross the finish line and look back and go, "Oh, I should have went left there." Like that's the goal of being a person that's crossed the finish line. So I don't get scared per se. I get more aware. I take precautions. Like I'm smart about it, but I also understand like I'm going to operate and have what I give. Where my energy goes is based on my focus goes. So focus goes, energy flows. So I start, as opposed to spending all my time looking at what's wrong, what's going bad. I'm like, where can I find the opportunity? Because everybody else is over here. I'm over here. So it's like that blue ocean, right? So I start finding the blue ocean. So did I get scared? No, because I mean, what I do in and of itself is like I have a mental perspective coaching program in business. And so I don't have this like it's not like food. Like I'm not selling food. I'm selling a different kind of need. And if I am the person who's in the background saying, but I don't know, and I don't, it's like no one's gonna look at me and be like, that's the guy. And so for me, I've always focused on where's the opportunity, even when it doesn't look like it's apparently there. I find it, which allowed like three of my clients right now have made more income in businesses similar to mine in the last 3 weeks than they have made in the last like 3 months, because I found an opportunity. We leaned into it. I promise you, I had to push them into an unconfident action. But when they did and it kept moving, it's like, oh, then they changed perspectives and beliefs. And so it's been an awesome like sight to see it come to life. If anything, this has been a great space for me to prove my work.
Anthony, I'm curious, how old are your children?
My oldest is 15 and my twins are 10. I had them young, man. So
No,
yeah, my son.
no, so it's interesting too, because there's going to be a whole generation where this is going to have impacted them. And so
Yeah.
I have two sons. One's a senior in college, one's a senior in high school.
Mm.
What would be advice you have for that next generation?
Yeah. For the kids that are dealing with this.
Well, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
they're taking it in stride, right? Senior year in high school, missing out on varsity sports and stuff, but really the
yeah.
more important things, about next steps for them.
Yeah, I think next step, and this has always been my perspective. I read articles a couple years back that had to do with like what the workforce is going to transition to in time as technology picks up and people have less of a need to be at buildings and businesses. If anything, I would say get incredibly, incredibly good at communicating, like person to person, and keep learning the technology that comes out. Because right now, we don't even know. There's going to be a good 10 to 20 businesses that come out of this that are going to change the world in the next 5 to 7 years. We just don't see it happening because we're in the middle of the tornado. We're in the eye of the storm. That's happening. So for my son, like even if it's track or whatnot, because everybody's getting this platform, people are being introduced to more than they were ever introduced to. Like my world takes place on Zoom, and Zoom's kind of thing that people heard about, saw billboards, didn't know what it is. Whereas now, Zoom went from 10 million on average conversations going on a day to 200 million, like a tenfold increase. Like it's or a 20-fold, it's 20-fold. Yeah. So all this crazy increase. And now what happens, people are being introduced to more things. So like the communication skills are a little bit different. I think that the separation later on in life will be those who can talk like this, communicate like this, have conversations, ask questions, field stuff. Those who are small and tucked away, like you better be phenomenal at coding, because if you can't talk to humans, it's going to be difficult for you to actually make a great living. And so for my kids and those who are coming out like your kids' age, you got to get on and learn the platforms, because there's stuff coming up that we don't know, like TikTok. I don't even know about this TikTok thing popping off. It's amazing, and I'm supposed to be on it, but I don't have like an audience of like teenage kids, so I'm not on there. But my son, I'm like, dude, you figure that thing out, you're going to be able to do some unique things. And even if you can't, just learn to talk to people. I think those are the things that can come out of this time, and then realizing that those skill sets will be applied to a different platform that we don't even see yet.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations. Charles and I started doing this right at the start of this mess to try to build some community and sense that people could go to. And we built up an awesome audience that have been paying attention to this, and I'm grateful for all of them paying attention. But it's refreshing to hear your attitude, and you're obviously an entrepreneur with the business that you've started, but
Yeah.
different from what we've talked about, because I think everybody is still embraced for impact.
Yeah.
They're operating scared. Majority are cutting back all their budgets because they're playing with scared money. And I think the entire world. I mean, you think about Chris Cuomo, watching him on CNN battle the virus live on TV. Like, we're looking for people that can help show us that it's going to be okay, because it doesn't feel like it's going to be okay. And I appreciate you and your mindset, because, like, look, if anybody has permission to look at things down, I mean, the stuff that you battled, you have permission. You could just say, screw it, I'm not going to be a good human being. I'm going to let all those failures be my story, and you don't. And that's what people need. You need to be able to see something like this.
You got to find joy. The thing is, I took a class in my church years ago, and it was talking about how, like, joy is this unique thing. And joy is kind of like this gas tank thing. When it gets low because I don't see hope or opportunity or possibility, I got to go borrow it from somebody. You don't create it. You go hang around people who have it, and you borrow it from them to give it to somebody else later. So if, like, I'm like a 5 joy, find a 10 and then go hang with them. And I promise they'll say some dumb jokes and different perspective. You're like, oh, I'm up here at a 10. Where's the next person to help out? And that's kind of how I've always been, like, all my life. Creepy, my wife, when we get an argument, she hates it because I'm usually, like, in a good mood. But it's at the end of the day, I'll see what I'm looking for. I will find what I'm looking for. And get me wrong, like, this is not a naive optimism. I love solving problems, man. I love weird puzzles and games. And this, to me, is a puzzle. It's a real life puzzle we're solving. And I like to look at it and say, okay, great. What assets and skill sets do I have? What do I know how to do and operate and create that I can put into the world and see if it'll happen? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm smart with what I do financially, but, like, I've been able to create more and do more. And it's not that I'm taking advantage of an opportunity, because I don't see it as that, but I'm not allowing myself to fall with the crowd that will be asking for handouts and trying to find ways to make sense of stuff in the forefront. I'm the person who's going to be at the front of that starting line and take off and go. I don't want to be the one behind, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to do work, period. We're going to have to do work, whether it's because you do the work later or because you do the work now. You're going to have to do work. For me, I'm taking that bold, unconfident action in the direction of what I think might work. I'm consistently tracking, like, daily. Is it working? Is it not working? Tracking numbers. Is it a good investment? Am I taking any risks that I don't need to take? And I'm slow playing it, but listening. And when I see something, I lean into it. And so far, I've been right. It's been good. But also, I have years of practice. And here's the thing. Everybody has years of practice. They're just not trusting the positive sides of who they are right now. They're leaning and being controlled by the part of them that questions everything.
It's as you're speaking, I'm not, it's one thing to learn from the words and what you're communicating. It's another just to see the core belief you have in you, and I appreciate that, because it's instructive. And I also, you're using the words about leaning into, right, these situations, and that's a theme we've been hearing. And
yeah.
And I think that's the only way to really approach this is, but what I'm learning, I don't have that. I mean, the only way I could describe is you just have positive energy, right? I like to think I have it. I maybe even say it, but not at that level. So, I mean, for me, it's just instructive to see it.
Yeah.
I know you live it,
Yeah, I do every day, man. It's I call it 95-5. We could spend 95% of our time stewing on it and 5% of our time getting out of the problem, which means I'll stay in that problem for longer. We just do. The longer you stay there, you stay there. And the flip side is, if I spend 5% of my time stewing on it and I spend 95% of my time getting out of it, that 5% goes to 0% pretty quickly.
Do you know, Anthony, what's so funny though? I have no negativity. When you talk about the 95-5, my only issue is I sometimes get lost in my own head. Like, I don't even know where I go.
You're human, you mean?
I don't. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. That's the thing, is when we don't have a known, our brain gets creative. But that's the beauty part, is the creativity is what creates something awesome. That's why you're successful.
Well, but I don't even know if it's because I'm saying, like, I think I may be lost. I mean, like, literally, so sometimes I just, too many thoughts in my head go in circles, and I just end up in my head. It's crazy. And I feel weird right now that I feel there's going to be a positive outcome. But as I drove to work today, it's only me in the office.
Mm-hmm.
There's cars lined up for testing. There's families that their lives are being altered right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's, stories like a young 30-year-old high school baseball player. And so I feel selfish from that standpoint, right? I feel grateful that I've come home and have dinner with my family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
Sure,
the
that would be
positive, I guess I'm getting at, there is a spiritual awakening too.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a moment that maybe as a society we all needed. Is that crazy?
They say the reboot, right? You gotta turn it off and turn it back on and make it work better.
Yeah.
I get the feeling though, because there is the aspect of like, okay, I'm doing great, and they're in stress mode. If you think about it, it's like if someone across the street's on fire, what do? You run over there and put them out because you have the ability to put them out. And right now, a lot of people are on fire, and you have the ability to have an optimistic mind and some different perspectives. So it's kind of like if you want to diminish the sense of guilt, serve, which you're doing. Like you guys asked me to come on here and talk, like you're doing it already. So diminish the guilt. I wouldn't operate from that place of like, oh, I feel bad because I'm happy. Like the world needs you to stay happy. Just start sharing more and more of it.
I think that's said perfectly. And I'm grateful the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I couldn't even begin to tell you how grateful I am for this.
Very welcome, man. I enjoy doing this. I at this moment in time, my calendar has been cleared for a lot of these. I'm like the happy guy, so I'm getting way more messages and asks, and I have no idea what will come of this. Nothing may come of this. Totally cool. But if I gave you that, then I'm assuming somebody watching got it also, and I did my job for the day, man.
No, we got to lock this down, Anthony. Something is going to come. We have a great community, and there's going to be so many things down the line. So please, something will come from this.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it does, but that's not why I'm doing it. Is what I mean. Like
No,
this is just literally for me to come chat.
We know that.
That's all. Crazy question, because I feel like this is important, but the mindset, people are going to get this awful sickness. How important is the mindset going into it that you're going to beat it versus feeling stressed and depressed that you're going to lose?
Yeah. Oh man, stress is big. It raises cortisol levels. So this is my other part of my world is physiology and the body, right? I owned a gym for a long time. I had degrees there, and I've kind of since spent a ton of time in psychology and neuroscience for the stuff I do in the backside. But in the sense of like the stress that I have around this, I'm gonna get or what's gonna go on, it raises your chances for getting sick in the first place or making yourself sick. And it may not even be the coronavirus sick. Like you might just get like the actual sickness or flu or stress and anxiety. So it builds and builds and builds. And that's stuff that your actual brain can release chemicals for that go into your body that make your body sick. And so just spending time in that place and not having any outlet to come back to a positive, it leads to you getting sick. Yeah, it drops your immune system. Literally, you get more sick if you're sick in the head. It's weird, man. It's a weird world we live in, right? The bodies and everything crazy. Yeah.
I will say now, I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I look at them and say, for the rest of their life, they'll remember this time. They won't really understand what it was like, and they'll tell stories as they get to having grandchildren someday about what this was like. That's the craziest thing. Like, we as a world are living the most crazy event that's hit any of us as human beings. And it's really hard to navigate because there's no proven blueprint.
There's nothing. That's the thing, is there's no proven. So the moment I hear that, I'm like, I get to make it.
That's it.
It's a different way I think, right? And my kids get to watch me make it. And I'm always like trying to have my children like I'm big. I want them to do whatever they want to do, chase the craziest dream in the world. But damn it, if I don't do it, then how am I going to expect them to even think it's possible? So like I lean and I adjust, and like so with these times, I am making a ton of like just efforts to make sure my kids see us, my wife and I, both leaning into this. My wife has a couple businesses. She's doing the same thing, 2 brick and mortar businesses. She's operating smooth. Like we get things done and we navigate and pivot. And I want my kids to look at it and say, yeah, that was crazy. I got to hang out with my parents more, but everything else was all right. Like that's what I kind of looking forward to. But even everybody else at home who's like stressing and struggling, this is a unique time in history. And I think one of the beautiful things is typically when we're struggling, like when I was going through my stuff with my marriage and my business, I was doing that alone. And that's the hard part, is to do it alone. Because we're all doing this together, there should be less fear around the fact of like, I'm just by myself. Like you have a ton of support because there's a lot of people trying to help you because they know your situation, and a lot of people right alongside with you. You guys can all band together to climb out of it. So if anything, like breathe, like it's going to be okay. Like there's going to be a lot of people coming to help because they all know what we're all going through.
I think that's a perfect message. And what's been great, so we've been having these conversations, and as much as the goal for me is to help give back and create a community where we band together, I think it's also been for my own sanity, because it's been very rewarding the way so many people have reached out, and exactly what you're saying. It's that sense of community, and it's been amazing to me. And I mean, it's 3 weeks ago I would have never expected to be speaking with you, for sure. And I have this amazing community of people that are helping each other. So, I mean, it's life is rewarding. It's interesting.
It is. It is, because you see it that way. I love it, man. I love it. It's been a cool conversation for sure on my end too.
Anthony, so I know you do a lot of speaking, a lot of coaching. I think, Nick, we had Anthony's website, and so it's anthonytrucks.com.
Yeah.
Right? Conferences, speaking events, all of that.
Yeah. All that fun stuff. I mean, the thing is, all of my work is based on very specific structured curriculum. I don't just randomly hop on the phone and chat like, hey, let's talk it out. Like, it's not how I work. So I reconfigure what I'm talking about based on the person or the demographic. So if it's corporate training, they'll take one specific area. If it's an individual doing solopreneurship, like speaking like I do, that's one area. If it's someone that has multiple businesses, different direction. But the core of it is I'm working to help you shift to think and operate at a higher level like I do and like my clients do. But along that, in order to get to that thing I said earlier, what you create creates you. In order to have that, you have to take the action to develop the sense of belief. Because I could say all day, you should believe in yourself and be amazing. But do you? The only way you do is when you actually succeed. So for me, it's like I put in the action. We strategize what the actions are that you will take to measure that sense of belief in yourself. So it's kind of a cool like duality of the work I do. I'm helping people achieve an achievement while transforming simultaneously on purpose.
And you do consistent coaching, right? You'll work with someone unrelated.
As soon as we're done, I have a client that's an Amazon executive we're speaking with. And as soon as we're done,
I don't want to kill all your time. Just what was the toughest obstacle in Ninja Warrior?
Oh man, so the one I fell on was these doorknobs, man. So those, I didn't even say it. I was an American Ninja Warrior. I'm the first former NFL athlete to hit a buzzer. The first season I went through, boom, hit a buzzer, got it. And then after that, it was harder. But the hardest one was this doorknob thing. I'm a heavy guy. I'm 235, 240 pounds right now. Most of the guys in the show are like $180 at the heaviest. Most like $150, 60. So I got these little doorknobs they put at an angle. So it kind of like goes straight and then it kicks up. And there's doorknobs that go up. And so you have to climb all the way up. And at the top, it unlocks and it drops you down. Then you got to go and turn around to another one, climb up it, and it drops you down. I was like, oh man. So I got up on one. I tried to transition. I'm just too heavy, man. I'm built for short bursts, go through, not hanging on for a while. It's not my expertise.
Anthony, I'm blessed, and I think we both say the same thing, that we're blessed to have had this conversation. I'm glad our lives have crossed, and I look forward to where it goes. Thank you so much for the time today.
Hey, very welcome, guys. Pleasure having me on it. I really interested having hanging out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anthony.
No problem. All right, you guys, I'm gonna take off.
See ya.
Take care.
Take care.